In the new language of emotions, I've made updates to all of the emotion families, but none of the families got as many updates as the fear family. The fear family was a big family already. It had fear, confusion, jealousy, envy, and panic, right? That's six. I added anxiety and I split panic into two pieces. So, what's going on? There's a lot going on in this family. The fear family I'm reading is your instincts, intuition, and orienting, your capacity to understand where you are in space and time and keep yourself functional, aware, and safe. We start with fear, which is I guess it's your instincts and your intuition about the present moment. Fear is about the present. So if you tend to be very present, if you tend to be very instinctual and intuitive, you're working well with fear already, although most people wouldn't even think of fear in that way. When people think of fear, they're usually thinking of panic. The difference is fear is your intuition and instincts about the present moment. Panic is the emotion that comes in when you're literally in danger, and it has the fight, flee, freeze, and flock to safety behaviors in it. Yes? So if there's actual danger that your fear has picked up in this present moment instinct, then panic's going to come to help, right? And so you'll have fear and panic working together. But a lot of people don't even know that they're different emotions. So separating out these emotions and becoming more articulate within this family is really important. I wrote a book about anxiety because anxiety was not in the original language of emotions. So much shame about that. And when I ask people about anxiety, they almost to a person described panic, right? So fear is confused with panic, and anxiety is confused with panic. So panic's like, okay, I just guess I have a lot of work to do here. So there's so much articulation that is in this family, is so important to understand that I spent more time making changes to this family to be just to become more articulate myself, right? Because anxiety wasn't even in the previous book. It has its own chapter now. So fear, it's the present moment, it's your intuition. And the questions for fear are, what am I sensing? So you want to key in to what's going on. Then the question is, what action should be taken? And that action could be stand up, sit down, roll over, look at the door, answer the phone, don't do anything, lay down, go back to sleep, right? Any of 1,000 actions, because you need to know what you're sensing first. Yes. The next emotion is anxiety, which is not panic. Anxiety is your emotion of motivation, and it helps you get things done. It helps you finish your tasks and meet your deadlines. Anxiety is more forward leaning than fear, which is about the present moment, because anxiety is about what's coming up, what is due, what is unfinished, right? Anxiety is a pretty energetic emotion because it needs to get things done, right? So the questions for anxiety is, what brought this feeling forward and what truly needs to be done? Because if your anxiety is very, very high, you might get yourself on what I call the anxiety train and just do all sorts of things when those didn't truly need to be done, right? It's important to know that this is a very energetic, forward leaning emotion. It can sort of unground you if you don't have any anxiety focused grounding practices. For a lot of people, they'll do a grounding practice to calm themselves down, but that's the opposite of what anxiety needs you to do. So, with our practice, it is to say, what brought this feeling forward? I'm sensing what is important and what truly needs to be done so that I can direct the anxiety. I'm not saying breathing out anxiety, breathing in joy. You know, joy is like, what? What am I doing here? You're supposed to get some of your task finished. This is not my kind of a thing, right? So, what we're doing in this work and throughout the whole book is learning to work with the emotion in the way the emotion needs to work. instead of working against the emotion by trying to calm yourself when anxiety needs you to do some work. It's important to be able to ground yourself and refocus by asking the questions, but we don't want to erase anxiety. Now, anxiety is not panic. Again, panic is the emotion that comes forward when you are in danger, and it has the fight, flee, freeze, and flock to safety behavior. But your anxiety may be connected to panic because you could be looking forward at a task or a deadline that are actually kind of dangerous if you don't finish them. If you don't get your work done on time, you may lose your job, which means you lose your livelihood, which means, hello, panic, there's a danger to your life. So again, it's very important with fear and anxiety to know when these emotions are present and then when panic is coming to help, because there's actual physical danger. And that's one of the things when I start getting very anxious and very sort of panicky, I'll just kind of stop myself and ask the question for panic, which is there any danger? Is my life in danger? And if no, I'll say, okay, thank you, panic. Let me work with anxiety now, right? I think of my emotions as my friends, and I talk to them and I argue with them and I love them, right? But having this kind of relationship in this way means that I don't get overwhelmed by a giant ball of emotion that I don't even know what's in there, right? So I can begin to articulate and become more emotionally functional and aware by knowing which emotions are happening when. It's normal for emotions to work together, right? You could have fear and anxiety and panic working together during a time when a car is veering towards you. You need to be in the present moment. Your anxiety needs to look ahead of you and see, is there a safe space anywhere? And your panic needs to be ready to fight, flee, freeze, or flock to safety and take care of you. It's normal for emotions to work together, but it's important to know when they do. Yeah. So the third emotion in the fear family is confusion. And it is a wonderful healing mask for fear and anxiety. When there's too much coming at you, when there's too many decisions to make, when there are too many tasks to do, when there's too many deadlines looming, it's overwhelming. And sometimes it's like confusion drops over you, like, you know, you become this gauzy sort of, impressionistic painting. You don't know, you can't decide. And a lot of people will push through confusion. I gotta know now. But confusion came forward because there's too much going on and you need a rest. It's kind of like a cognitive rest break. The questions for confusion, they were very bad in the first book, and I call myself out on it. It was, what was it? It was like, what is my intention and what action should be taken? What action should be taken is the fear question. And you can see me trying to move people out of confusion. That was a very bad thing that I did. I understand why I did it, because there's no welcome for confusion anywhere. There's no welcome for any of us to be confused. So I was just repeating that cultural crappiness. Yeah. So the questions now are, how can I welcome not knowing and not doing? How can I make a space for not always knowing things and for not always doing things? There's a deep rest in confusion. It's so important. And I kept the what is my intention question because if you've got confusion about two choices, it can really help to understand what your intention is. And then a lot of things can clear away. But how can I welcome not knowing and not doing? It's a very important question, and it helps support what confusion came to do much better than my terrible earlier questions. Okay. There's two emotions in the fear family, and they sort of belong in the fear family, which is instincts and intuition, and they sort of belong in the anger family, which is your boundaries and behavioral guidelines. These two emotions are jealousy and envy. They're very important emotions. I call them the sociological emotions because their job is to keep you, I guess, safe in your social world. Jealousy, safe and stable in your intimate relationships, and envy, safe and stable in regard to money, recognition, things, stuff, possessions, and your position in the world, right? Incredibly important emotions. And my questions were not strong. They were not strong because they didn't really lean into what these emotions are doing. And I didn't kind of pull the questions out and make it very clear the differences between these two emotions. So for jealousy, the questions are, what kinds of intimacy do I desire and want to offer? A lot of people think about jealousy as just me, me, me. What do I get? What do I get? But when your jealousy is more mature and you work with it in a stronger way, you will understand that the way to support and create a loyal relationship is to give as much as you receive. So that's why it's what kinds of intimacy do I desire and want to offer? It's about equal, it's about security and loyalty, yeah, and fairness in the relationship. And the second question for jealousy is, what betrayals must be recognized and healed? Jealousy will arise when your relationships are challenged or threatened, either by something inside you where you're not focusing on the relationship with the energy that it requires, or something's going on. Something's going on to challenge or threaten your bond. So jealousy is an incredibly important emotion because your bonds, we are social animals. We need each other to survive. So if your bonds are threatened, you're going to need an emotion that comes up just to help stabilize your bonds. And that first question, what kinds of intimacy do I desire and want to offer, helps you look at the sort of the totality of jealousy, which is not just about me, it's about us, right? Envy is similar. The question is, what resources and security do I desire for myself and others? Many people think of envy in the way they think of jealousy, which is like, it's all just me, it's greed, I don't care about anybody. That's a very unsafe way to live, and you're gonna fall. You're gonna fall. It's not a good use of that emotion. So envy is about equality and justice. So if you have a big heart for equality and justice, you're working well with envy. We just would never say that because people have been taught to hate these two emotions, right? Envy is one of the 7 deadly sins. Yeah, I think 5 of the 7 deadly sins are human emotions. So that's a thing. But that question for envy, what resources and security do I desire for myself and others, is so important because if others do not have, if they are not stable and resourced and they're not have enough to eat, the whole society begins to go topsy-turvy, as we've seen here in the United States and in other countries where the separation between the rich and the poor is so horrific that all kinds of political instability is happening. And we need to stabilize that. Envy would say, this is unjust, this is unequal, and there's trouble here. This is dangerous for everyone, as we've all seen. Yeah. The second question for envy is, what inequalities must be made right? So if you are a person who notices inequality and injustice, you're already an envy professional. So thank you for your work. The final emotion is panic and terror. And panic is the emotion, as I've said, that comes forward when your life is in danger. The questions for what we've called immediate panic, we've separated panic into 2 pieces. Immediate panic, which is the right now you're in danger, and frozen panic, which is the panic that holds the information and survival instincts of a past traumatic incident that you haven't yet resolved. I'll go over that in a minute. So immediate panic is what is currently a threat, right? And you're not going to have time to ask this question. Your panic works like that. Your panic works even before I thought about how to snap my fingers. Your panic is immediate. it goes. It doesn't even care what you think. It's going to save your life. Thank you, panic. But basically, it's what is currently a threat, and please help me fight, flee, freeze, or flock to safety. Yeah. That's what it does. It is a survival genius. Panic is a survival genius. It's an incredibly powerful emotion. It's very energetic. And if you've had a situation where you fought, fled, freezed, or flocked to safety, you'll know that you were activated. And you might have had to think about or talk about what had happened so that you could sort of upload the survival information and then sort of down regulate yourself to be like, whew, okay, I survived. It's a normal day. If you don't have time to do that, or if the traumatic incident was overwhelming or it happened over a long period of time, you may not have time to do that necessary settling after a panic-inducing situation or a traumatic situation. When that happens, the panic still needs you to settle. The panic still needs you to uptake that survival information because that thing could happen again. You need survival information. Your panic is constantly pulling in survival information from things you watch, from when you see someone trip on the street. Panic is constantly pulling in more and more survival information. And if you've got an unresolved trauma from the past, frozen panic may come up to remind you of it. In the pathology paradigm, this is called post-traumatic stress disorder. I don't think it's a disorder. I think it's people not understanding how panic works. I think it's people not understanding that panic needs you to go back and gather the survival information because you survived, right? You're alive to have this sometimes annoying panic coming up and saying, hey, remember that really scary thing that happened? Let's look at it now. And you're like, no, I never, ever want to look at it, right? So panic is trying to help you heal, reintegrate, and upload that survival information because you're a survival expert. You're alive. Yes. So the questions for frozen panic is, what has been frozen in time? And what healing action must be taken? And in the book, oh, where is that? I have actually a chart in the new book about healing actions that you can take. Where is the chart? It's on page 280 and 281. Healing actions you can take versus dubious actions. And the reason that we ask what healing actions you can take is because frozen panic has a lot of energy in it. And so does panic in general. It's a very energetic emotion because it has to like save your life in a split second. Panic is the emotion that can take a 5'2" mom who suddenly is able to lift a car off of her child. All right. Panic has that much energy. And so all that energy, you could use it to take any number of actions, but are they healing actions? Are they actions that are going to help you uptake this amazing survival information that you've got and help you integrate this situation and help you heal? Or are they actions that's going to keep it going, such as drinking until you black out? That's an action, yeah. But when you wake up, that frozen panic is still going to be like, okay, yeah, I saw that you had a drink and you blacked out. Now I still want to talk about that really scary thing that happened. And then if your only healing action is to drink, you're going to be drinking a lot, but you're not going to be doing anything for the panic. So in the panic chapter, there's ideas about how to use that energy to work with panic in a healing way. I would be like, it's so simple. It's not simple, but it's a hell of a lot more simple than doing all kinds of random actions that will not heal you and that will increase the frozen panic's need for you to look at what happened and help it downregulate and integrate. So that's the fear family. And it's long, right? There's 8 emotions in it, but it's because it's such an important thing to keep you alive. Yes. to keep you instinctual, to keep you focused, to keep you healthy, to keep you well, to keep you well organized in your social and relational life. It's a very important family. And I'm so glad that I got to update it because yeah, it really deserved better treatment than what I gave it in the original book. But I have to look back on myself and say I did really well. I just didn't understand it well enough, right? I did as well as I could at the time, and now it's much better. So I'm so glad to welcome you to this book and to this conversation that we're having, not just with each other, but with our emotions, because they are an amazing group of very, very specific aspects of brilliance, of genius, of kind of they're what make us human, they're what make us functional. And the more we can go into them and understand them, the stronger our awareness will be, the stronger our selves will be, the stronger our relationships will be, the stronger our intellect will be, there's no downside at all to learning more about your emotions and learning how to speak to them in their own language. That's the work in the language of emotions. And I'm so glad that you're joining me in this because really, what else you got to do? Thank you so much.